Hello, good afternoon. My name is Alan Friesen. I volunteer in a group called Shenla, and with me is the leader of Shenla, the esteemed Dr. Sharon Yanicki. Sharon, there's been quite a new updated calculation on what a living wage means in Lethbridge, right? What's the
Right.
process? How did they kind of come up with what's the process in terms of determining that living wage?
Okay. Shenla works with the Alberta Living Wage Network and to do the calculation each year. And so it's done with a process that's comparable across communities in the province of Alberta. And that's very helpful for us to have a similar method to do all of the calculations. And with their help, we assess what's the cost of living for three types of family groups. So the first one is the cost of living for a family of four, two parents and two children. And then the next one is for a lone parent with a young child. And the third one is for a single individual living alone. So those three sets of calculations are done, considering that in the family of four with two parents working, what would be the cost of living for them, and what wage would they need to earn in order to be able to meet their basic needs with dignity and to be able to participate in community life. So participating in community life includes having transportation to get places, being able to upgrade and take two university classes within the year if you're trying to move forward and improve your education, and for children to be able to take part in some activities in the community. So with that comparison then, they also look at what's the percentage of each family type in Alberta, and then they use that standard calculation to say what the living wage is based on those three calculations. So it's called a weighted average.
Oh, so they have separate
All,
values. You have
all
separate.
three are calculated separately, and then by the percentage of the population in those three groups in our communities. They use the Alberta rate to calculate that.
Yes.
So
Sharon,
that's been calculated for Lethbridge this year, and the number is $20.60 an hour is the averaged rate for that.
okay, so at $20.60 an hour, and
Mhm.
then, but in reality, what the single parent one, I'm sure has to be higher than that. Was that how the math would work?
Yes, that's correct. So let me just go to that page. And so
And this is, just to confirm, this is like where this package of groceries that, a person or a family would need, this package of transportation they would need, this package of rent or mortgage and their utilities bills, etc., those kind of things, right?
that's correct. And so it's everything from food, clothing, and shelter to childcare for young children. Um, and it's healthcare and other household costs. And then it also considers what government supports are in place that families are eligible for in each of those groups. So the family of four with two children has many more government deductions of programs to support them. And so, for example, there was an increase in the Canada Child Benefit this year, and so that helped families. And provincially, the government had an adjustment fund to try and help adjust for the cost of living. And so families would have different sets of benefits based on the number of children and their income and their eligibility for different kinds of government benefits. That's all included in the living wage calculation for each
Okay.
type.
Because the actual number now versus the number it was the previous calculation, this is actually reduced, is it not? Isn't it less?
No, it's increased by just 30 cents.
30
So
cents.
an hour. Yeah. So it was $20.30. Now it's $20.60 is the living wage in Lethbridge. And so that's the wage that employers would need to be paying if they wanted to assure that their workers are able to meet their basic needs and have opportunities for health and participation in community life.
Right. And the reason why it's not more, because we've all seen groceries going up considerably, utilities going up considerably, is because of the supports, the provincial government supports that come into play.
Yes, that's right. So this year there were several newer supports that came in, and let's see, the one was the government of Alberta's affordability measures. And then nationally, the federal government implemented the Canada Dental Benefit. Now, families were only eligible for that if they use dental services, then they could apply to be eligible for that. So it's a complex calculation, but it gives us something comparable across communities, and we see that the cost of living has gone up. And we all have felt the cost of, the impact of the cost of food and increase in the cost of shelter. But it's different in different communities. So that's been really interesting to see. How does Lethbridge compare this year in comparison to other years? So this year, shelter costs in Lethbridge went up 12%.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago, Lethbridge had the highest food costs among cities of mid-sized cities. But this year, we were sort of more reduced cost in terms of food costs in comparison to other communities. So, for example, Lethbridge food costs are lower than the city of Edmonton and the city of Calgary, but higher than Red Deer, or in comparison to a smaller sized city like Medicine Hat. But many other communities in Alberta also had higher food costs, and it varied across different sizes of communities.
So Sharon, did you have that breakdown on the single plus one, like parent plus one, and family with a husband, wife plus two, what those differences were? I know that weighted was $20.60.
Yes.
But what's the range between those three?
So the family of four was eligible for the highest number of government benefit programs. And so we saw the living wage actually reduced for the family of four. So $18.32 an hour, assuming that both parents are working in this family of four, then and working at least 35 hours a week, then that's the wage that would support the family of four as a living wage. And in comparison, lone parents, single parent with one child, would have to earn $25.24 an hour to meet their shelter costs and food costs, the costs of childcare, the child benefits that came in for childcare. So it's a huge difference, and we can see that why lone parent families are struggling more in our community.
Definitely.
For single parent families, they weren't eligible for a lot of different benefits that other families with children received, and they would need to earn $23.46 an hour in Lethbridge to be able to have a living wage.
Okay. And there's also, Sharon, there is this living wage network where employers could apply based on if they are in fact paying a living wage between their wages and their benefit programs they have, or those kind of programs in
Yeah.
terms of, yeah. So tell us more about that.
So thanks, Alan. Within Alberta, we have a coordinator, and he can assist businesses if they're interested in calculating what's a living wage, including the benefits they pay. And so all of the benefits that an employer provides is calculated into the living wage. And so it would, that $20.60 an hour would be calculated with would be adjusted with the cost of benefits that are provided, because in here we cover the cost of health care. We have, if you have sick benefits and all sorts of other benefits, then that would kind of adjust that bottom line for the rate. And so we would really encourage more of our employers to consider registering and going through that process to be recognized as living wage employers. And we encourage people to support businesses that are offering a living wage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the process isn't very onerous. It's basically you just have to fill a little application. Here's what we pay for wages. Here's what the benefit program we have that we share this much cost on, that kind of a thing. Right. So,
Right.
yeah. So, I mean, for many, they would regard that as like a badge of honor that they're doing the right thing for their folks, right? For their
Yes.
team members. Right. So,
And beyond that, there's benefits to employers. And so there's advantages to paying a living wage. So I'd like to just highlight some of those. And the studies have shown that paying a living wage supports the health and well-being of the employed person or the employees. And so if you're doing that, you increase the retention and tend to reduce the sick days overall of your employees. And it supports their mental health and well-being because it's less stressful to be able to meet your needs and your family's needs. So you're not having to try and take on a second job to make up the difference between a minimum wage job and what you actually need to be able to meet your needs, which is the living wage.
yeah, I mean, if you're like with the single parent one at $25.24, well, if you're a single parent getting minimum wage only, let's pretend, you got to work a lot of hours to make that up, which then, of course, takes away from your ability to engage with your children and kind of be there and support them and guide them and help them, right? So,
Yes,
yeah.
it's very stressful as well. And it might mean that you're living with another group of people. Perhaps you have to move in with someone you know and share housing. That means perhaps you're in more crowded housing space and living conditions might be more challenging or stressful. So that's a real burden for low-income parents or lone parent families, and the single individuals are really struggling to stay housed.
Right, right. Well, I think that's great work to quantify what is a living wage, right? To have this package of services that we would all need to enjoy life and be healthy and well and engage in our communities. These are kind of the values we'd have to be able to make that work. So at least we have something to measure on and that we can share with the community and encourage and support their efforts to get their team members to that level, right? Or to seek out employers who are, providing compensation at that level that they can actually have a living wage and live a good life, which of course we all want, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
One of the things that, I was pleased that the city of Lethbridge implemented the low-income bus pass. But when we did the calculation, I was surprised to see that if you were earning as much as a living wage, you no longer qualify for the low income bus pass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of frustrating. Yes.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
but it's
This,
important anyway in our community that we have that support for low income families.
tell us just a little bit about Shenla before we part company here.
Okay. The Social Health Equity Network seeks to promote the health and well-being and equity of people living in southwestern Alberta. So that's Lethbridge and area. And so by equity, we mean things that impact you socially or impact your health. So, and we support people to live in dignity and to have the opportunity to participate in community life and be included.
And Shenla meets once every month, and then they have goals, they have dreams, they have wishes for a better, safer, healthier community. And if you are involved with an agency that has similar aims, we invite you to kind of be involved with us and share so that we can make a bigger collective impact. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Our next meeting, I believe, is November 16th. Is that correct?
Yes, and you'll find us on Facebook. We have the Shenla website. You can look us up on Facebook.
Or if you want, you can certainly call me. I can share you what I know. I don't know as much as Dr. Yanicki, but I do know some. And my cell phone number is 587-220-8840. And certainly if you want to reach out to me, send me a text, give me a call. I can share with you what I know about Shenla and invite you to learn more about them. So anything else, closing comments we would like to share?
Just that we're also encouraging the province of Alberta to think about increasing the minimum wage. The gap between a minimum wage and the cost of living in Alberta communities is really highlighted by the calculation of this year's living wage. You can find the cost of living for each of the participating communities posted on the Alberta Living Wage Network website.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Yanicki. Appreciate the conversation and the update in terms of what the new living wage is for our community.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, keep well.